Next question, Creeper Weirdo. Do you like pulps like The Shadow, Zorro, Doc Savage, or their comic book counterparts like Rocketeer or The Phantom? Um, yeah, when I was in like junior high and going into high school, the pulps novels began to appear in paperback form. And I was first attracted to them by the Jim Steranko covers. So I started reading The Shadow. And I had met the creator of The Shadow, as I described in an earlier video. I met Mr. Gibson, and Maxwell Grant was a house name. And which sparked my interest even more, because he suggested, a number of novels, even telling me that the Romanoff Jewels, one of the ones pictured here, was his personal favorite of all the ones he had written, and I read it, and it's good. It's a good story. I like The Shadow. It's got a dense continuity. I like the supporting cast, and I read quite a few of these, because the paperback companies were, eager to print them because they were already established, no deadlines. These books were, 30 or more years old at this point, 30 or 40 years old at this point. But they did a lot of them, so people must have picked them up, either through nostalgia or, I knew a lot of kids when I was in school who read these avidly. And, well, of course, the success of Doc Savage, which I could never get into Doc Savage. I'm sorry. Sorry, Mr. Nolan. Graham Nolan's a huge Doc Savage fan. I just couldn't see it. Another one I followed, and primarily because the Jim Steranko cover sucked me in. This is the way you bought paperbacks back then. Ooh, that's got a great cover. And that would draw you into the book, which was the purpose of the great cover. These I really enjoyed. I enjoyed them even more than The Shadow or any of the other pulp reprints. G8 and his Battle Aces. They were written by Robert J. Hogan, who was unusual because he used his own name. He wasn't a house name. And he wrote every single G8 and his Battle Aces pulp novel for 15 years. Every month for 15 years, this guy cranked out, aviation action set in the skies above World War I France. And the stories are wacky. Apparently, according to Hogan, the Kaiser employed more mad scientists than he did soldiers, because every story has some, wackadoo mad scientist back in Berlin or wherever, creating some, horrible, monstrous, awful fate for the Allies in the trenches. And only G8 and his pals can fly in and rescue, Western Europe from the Hun. What separates these from a lot of pulps is that Robert J. Hogan was a World War I pilot. He didn't go to combat. Unfortunately, he got out of training school too late to actually get to France. But he did fly these planes and fire the guns and practice and do all the combat practice. So when he wrote about these things, he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was writing about. More importantly, he was able to impart his own experiences very vividly. I didn't read these things for the plots. I read them for for Hogan's ability to put you in the cockpit and make you feel like you're there with G8, and describing all the sensations and sights and sounds and smells of being in aviation combat. He's very good, and I mean, no wonder this pulp magazine, which lasted 4 times longer than America, well, even more. It lasted like 7 times longer than America's involvement in World War I. It's not hard to figure out once you read a couple why they were so popular, why they had such a loyal following amongst magazine buyers at the time. It's just good stuff. Another one I read quite a bit of was The Spider, and The Spider is kind of a Shadow knockoff, although in the books he doesn't really look like the character on this cover. I like The Spider because although his ensemble cast wasn't as interesting as the Shadows, his methods were far more direct. And he was really big. He was like Frank Castle. He was real big into making sure no bad guys escaped alive. He was a real no prisoners kind of pulp hero. Very, very direct, very nasty, very mean, and scary. You got the idea this guy might be completely and utterly freaking crazy. And that's what made these stories work. And as in all of these pulps, the bad guys are, beyond lurid, which makes it so much fun. And of course, I got into Edgar Rice Burroughs through the Pellucidar novels and then the Mars novels, and eventually I read all the Tarzan novels because these are all readily available in paperback. I can't think of a drugstore, paperback store, or newsstand that you didn't go to and they didn't have Tarzan novels, which to me indicates these must have sold like a house of fire. A lot of kids I knew growing up read these, and Tarzan was a mainstay for me. And, a lot of people forget Tarzan was a pulp character. He didn't appear in the slicks. He appeared in the higher end pulp magazines, but they were still pulp magazines. It was still lowbrow entertainment, and I'm all about the lowbrow entertainment. Now, I've written a little bit of Tarzan, which I've discussed before, but I also got to write some Spider. Moonstone did an anthology of Spider stories, new Spider stories, and they asked me to contribute. And I thought, yeah, hey, I'd love to do this. But I want to do a different take. I didn't just want to do a straight-up pulp adventure, all purple prose and everything else. And at the time, I had been reading a few novels and short stories by a writer named Dawn Powell. And Dawn Powell wrote at the time, in the 1930s, about New York high society. And I thought, well, let me put on my highfalutin, pretentious auteur hat and write a Spider story in the style of Dawn Powell. And I don't know if I was successful or not, but I had a lot of fun doing it. So it's got everything that a Spider story should have. It's got a horrible villain and a grisly fate for the victims that he either will or will not rescue. And of course, the bad guy gets his comeuppance in the end. At the business end of a pair of blazing 45s. So it has all the elements of a pulp story, but I approached it from a different literary style, just for fun, just to see if I could do it. And I felt personally it was successful. I don't know how you would feel about it. But it's from the good folks at Moonstone, and I believe it's still in print. You can probably find copies of this somewhere on eBay or Amazon if you're at all interested in my own approach to pulp fiction. And G8, I got the team, again, thanks to the folks at Moonstone, I got the team G8 with the Golden Age Airboy in a story in which I brought back the Batstoffel, which was these gigantic bats from the G8 pulp series. Probably my favorite G8 novel, called the Batstoffel. Once again, a mad scientist creates a species of enormous King Kong-sized bats to attack Allied aviation. And when everybody at Moonstone, Joe Gentili, for the most part, the head honcho at Moonstone, said, would you like the team Airboy and G8? Because they're both aviation characters. I was like, yeah, when do I start? And I had free reign of everything G8, so I thought, well, they got to meet the Batstoffel. It's so perfect for G8 to meet the Batstoffel once again, and a bunch of giant bats is perfect adversaries for Airboy, who faced a lot of like monstrous horror-themed bad guys like that, threats like that, and also flies a plane, which motivates along using bat wings. So, well, geez, the imagery here is awesome, and Ken Hoover knocked it out of the park. I thought it was a fun project to work on. Again, you can probably get it from Moonstone or find it cheap on eBay if you're interested.